On Point is brought to you by Crow Jamaica.
A very good evening and welcome to On Point. My name is Patria K and I'm your host.
And I'm Dennis Chung.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. It has been a while.
It has been a while. It's good to be back. You miss
Good to be
TV?
back. I'd be lying if I said yes.
And here we are. We're going to
Yeah.
make it good, correct?
Yeah.
What's been on the topic for you for the last week or so?
The main one that has taken up a lot of chit chat on in the regular media, traditional media, social media, is this way that ACP Welsh has acted. I think there's a time and place for everything, but certainly in violating traffic laws is not a time for repentance and not a time for confessionals. We have a serious problem with discipline on the roads, and we have to ensure that we send the right message.
Well, absolutely. I think the commissioner recognized the error in his ways in appointing him, and very swiftly, before you could get used to calling him head of PSTEB, less than 2 weeks, and he was out of the chair. And I think perhaps it was a right move. I think the traffic matters. PSTEB has a responsibility to kind of manage in the country. It's just too important for you to be blundering, certainly in the first 2 weeks of office.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Blunder not once, but twice.
Absolutely. I think that matter with the aggressive Mercedes wasn't handled the way it ought to. I've said in another space, and I'll say it here as well, when you call a press conference, have in mind what you expect the media to take away as a story. And I can't possibly imagine what the story was that Sir Welsh wanted the media to take away from bringing them together on Dunrobin to say, shame on you, aggressive Mercedes-Benz driver, walk and sin no
him
more.
on the hand, but patting him on the back.
And saying walk and sin no more. I mean,
and then for me, Patria, the head of the Road Safety Council was actually in support of it, which for me is also frightening, because these are the two primary bodies who are supposed to ensure that there is proper safety on the roads.
Another matter that's certainly on the table, and putting on my weather girl hat, it is the hurricane season, and we're approaching actually the peak of the hurricane season, which comes around the first and second weekend of September. And true to form, Tropical Storm Dorian approaches the Central Caribbean. Our neighbors, Barbados, have already dealt with it, and it comes closer into our territory. And if nothing else, it's a reminder for us to be prepared.
It is. If there's one thing to take, comfort in though, and you can tell me as someone who's an expert in weather, hurricanes tend to take the path that the previous one has taken.
True. There is history that happens, yes.
Yeah.
So you're saying...
I'm sorry. I'm saying that, it's a good thing that this one has veered away from us.
I take some comfort in it, but not total, especially when you look at the models. I mean, no two hurricanes follow exactly the same path. And because the Caribbean is so small, if a system happens to veer ever so slightly, you can talk about the difference in destruction one country and another.
But let me ask you this though, Patria. Why is it that Jamaica seems to be so lucky that they either go up or down? Is it because of the land around us?
Boy, there are all kinds of theories that are put on the table, none of which we can concretely say this is it. But the Blue Mountain Range is one of those things that people think it's one of those things that keeps things away. And in the same breath, we can ask the question, why is it that Haiti is so unlucky? That so many things that, I mean, the DR is right there beside them. And if you look at the kind of direct hits that Haiti has gotten in comparison to the DR, it's phenomenal. It's a kind of thing that requires study over time. But because weather is not an exact science, the best that we can do is prepare. And prepare we should.
Yeah, we definitely should.
Well, folks, we've got a lot to talk about in today's show. Top of the list is going to be the fact that Jamaica's standby agreement with the IMF comes to an end in November. We couldn't let him go without talking to him. The IMF's representative to Jamaica, Dr. Constant Lankeng Nguana, stops by for one of his very last interviews before he leaves the country.
And a little later in the show, we're going to be talking about the possibility of a recession. Can Jamaica withstand the economic shocks of another possible global recession. We're going to be speaking about that.
But folks, before all of that, we're actually going to take a look at some of the news stories that made the rounds this week.
At number 5, the massive fires in the Amazon rainforest continue to blaze this week. It's been 3 weeks, and satellite images have shown that at one point since the blaze started, there were over 9,000 fires raging. Brazil's National Institute for Space Research has reported at least 74,000 fires in the Amazon this year so far, an increase of 84% compared to the same time last year. Meanwhile, G7 countries have promised 20 million euros in aid for the rainforest. At number 4, a judge in the U.S. state of Oklahoma has ruled that drug maker Johnson & Johnson must pay $572 million for its part in fueling the state's opioid addiction crisis. The case was the first to go to trial out of thousands of lawsuits filed against opioid makers and distributors. Immediately after the judgment, Johnson & Johnson said it would appeal. At number 3, the Economic Program Oversight Committee (EPOC) will continue its monitoring role of Jamaica's economic reform program beyond the end of the precautionary standby arrangement with the International Monetary Fund (IMF), which ends this November. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says the committee will have a broader base to include civil society members. The minister has appointed the current co-chair of EPOC, Keith Duncan, to be chairman of the expanded committee. At number 2, the Bank of Jamaica BOJ has further reduced the policy interest rate on deposit-taking institutions' overnight placements. The rate was cut by 25 basis points to 0.5% effective Wednesday, August 28. The BOJ says the decision reflects its assessment that inflation is projected to average 4.3% over the next 8 quarters, which is within the 4 to 6% target range. However, the central bank noted that in the absence of a policy response, inflation is likely to fall below the target's lower limit at various points over the period. And in the number 1 spot this week, Jamaica's economy grew 1% during the first quarter of the fiscal year. Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica PIOJ, Dr. Wayne Henry, says the growth in the April to June 2019 quarter was spurred primarily by a 1.4% expansion of the services industry. The PIOJ says this quarter's growth number extends Jamaica's growth trend to 18 consecutive quarters, or 4.5 years, despite the overall flat performance in the goods-producing industry.
When we come back, life after Jamaica's latest IMF program, not just for the country, but also for Jamaica's IMF representative, Dr. Constant Longkeng Nguana. We talk to him after the break.
Taking the pain out of the audit preparation. Crow Jamaica now offers audit management services, AMS. With AMS, Crow team manages your external audit process by providing the following. 1. Prepare and review schedules for your external auditors. 2. Prepare responses to your external audit team queries. 3. Assign our team members to locate supporting documents during field work. 4. Draft financial statements in accordance with IFRS to supply to your external auditors. 5. Provide guidance to your internal accounting staff regarding classification and recording of transactions. 6. Review your general ledger for accuracy. 7. Prepare necessary journal entries. 8. Prepare fixed asset register. 9. Prepare accounting and operational manual for effective internal control. 10. Liaise with the company external auditors. We work with your team to achieve timely and effective external audits, resulting in timely completion of your audited financial statement, while your current staff focuses on their daily activities. Contact us, info@crowhorwath.com.jm. Website, www.crow.com/jm.
Welcome back to On Point. Jamaica's 3-year standby agreement with the International Monetary Fund comes to an end in November. Here's a look back at the program and also considerations where we go from here.
Jamaica's latest relationship with the International Monetary Fund (IMF) started in 2013 when the country entered into a 4-year $932 million extended fund facility. This arrangement ended in 2016 when it was replaced by a US $1.7 billion precautionary standby arrangement. At the time of the agreement, the government said the intention was to treat the standby arrangement as an insurance policy against unforeseen economic shocks that are beyond the control of Jamaica. The IMF also pointed out that the new proposed program and the important commitment of IMF resources that it entailed was a firm vote of confidence in Jamaica. The move to a precautionary arrangement was a sign of strength and reflected the policy credibility and strong macroeconomic management of the government. That IMF vote of confidence wasn't squandered over the past 3 years, as the local economy grew from strength to strength, achieving and surpassing the targets set for each review period. With the program officially ending in a few months, the IMF has congratulated successive administrations on their ability to stick to the plan, which resulted in the improvement of the Jamaican economy.
We're joined now by IMF representative to Jamaica, Dr. Constant Longkeng Nguana. Welcome back to On Point, Constant. It's been 3 years and I still can't get your last name right.
Oh boy, you just need to check with Patricia.
I'll help you.
So how was it? How was those 3 years? You're at the end of the 3-year term now.
Yeah, amazing journey.
Yeah.
The Jamaican people really pulled this off.
Yeah, yeah.
7 years ago, there were a lot of doubt as to whether Jamaica will deliver on the promise. And here we are. We have an economy now that is more predictable. There is a lot of discussion about growth being low, but at least we have consecutive quarters of positive growth. And when you look at the growth numbers in historical perspective, it's much higher than what Jamaica is.
Well, you know, Constant, I tell people all the while that we've done something tremendous, because I remember when we started this journey in 2012 and 2013, beginning was a dire situation. I started at the PSOJ in 2013, and I remember all the meetings and everything. So we've done a great job, eh?
Awesome. And I mean, it's drawing a lot of attention around the world. And Jamaica has really become a case study for ownership, because to our mind, that's really what helped Jamaica achieve all these gains.
You had an interesting perspective watching that journey. And I want to take you back to 3 years ago.
Okay.
The Jamaica you saw when you got here.
I mean, 3 years ago, there were already signs of, macroeconomic situation being more stable. But 3 years ago, it wasn't as entrenched as it is the case today. We're now talking about a debt to GDP below 100%. That wouldn't have been the case 3 years ago. We're now reaping some of the dividends of that macroeconomic stability in the form of, moderate inflation, in the form of more fiscal space opening up to the point where Jamaica, for the first time in a long time, had net tax reduction. So these are all very good.
Which we never thought that would ever happen. In Jamaica, we actually have a reduction
in taxes.
Yes. That's amazing. So what has it been like for you personally, though? Because I mean, that's really one of the things we want to get out.
Yeah, I mean, it's always so rewarding to be a small part of a bigger project. I mean, you're talking about a project for Jamaicans and by Jamaicans. We will have help along the process by providing some technical expertise. We have a very wide technical assistance program, and people know us for the money, but really our main contribution is really in terms of helping countries strengthen their economic institutions. And over the period 2016 to 2018, Jamaica was among the top 10 recipient of IMF technical assistance.
And so let's talk about your role in that specifically. You're charged with a mandate coming to Jamaica as the IMF representative to do what? You come here with an expectation that your role will be what?
To talk to you guys. Well, no, really, I mean, engage various stakeholders. Some of those happen really informally. Get to get different perspective, talk to, go to St. Elizabeth to talk to farmers, The next day, I'm talking to high school students. So taking the pulse of the economy is one of the things that I would have been doing. And also being really part of the technical team, because in order to do that job effectively, you have to be plugged in the policy development in the country, and obviously manage our small local office. And we kind of serve as a liaison between Jamaica and our headquarters in Washington.
When you got here and you were testing that temperature, the outside world had perceptions about whether or not we could do this. Did Jamaican people, you feel, believe that we could be where we are today?
I think so. The reason being that you guys came together. I think the fact that the country realized that it was against the wall and that something had to be done, that was the very first step. And I was talking to someone earlier today, I won't name the person. He said that when he realized under the first program that Jamaican was delivering on the targets and everything, he put all its assets in the stock market. A lucky one, right?
Absolutely. Because the returns that person
well, it was sort of obvious that, that would happen once that fiscal discipline started to come in.
And it's a virtuous circle, right? The more was being done, and the more dividends were obvious, and which provided the incentive to do some more. And that speaks to what we call anchors in economic policy. Think about the debt to GDP ratio, the objective in the fiscal law to bring the debt to GDP to 60%. That kind of anchor fiscal policy. And the debt reduction and the primary surplus relaxation under the program was guided by the fact that indeed debt had come down significantly, and even with the relaxation, Jamaica was still on track to meet the 60%.
But let me ask you one thing. I'm concerned because you mentioned, and Patria mentioned about the temperature, right? Prior to about 2014, 2015, when things we started to see that there was some possibility, the IMF had a certain stigma in Jamaica. People felt that the IMF was here to destroy us and all of that. But all that has changed, eh? And for me personally, I mean, looking at the journey myself, being a part of that journey, I think that what was very important for us is the type of personality you had coming into the situation, because it does help to be out there with the people. Eh?
I mean, yes, being a small part of a bigger project has really been the drive to go out there and talk to people. There is a whole big team from our side, from the Jamaica side, who just wake up thinking about Jamaica and long nights, working around the clock to make sure that we get this right. And the engagement with the officials and wide range of stakeholders has been so encouraging. People are really plugged in. People want to know what's going on, and we don't take that as granted. To have people listening and engaging with you we don't take it as granted. So it's been really a blessing.
Part of your role as well was to wean the baby, to make sure that we were in a position at the end of this 3-year agreement to be efficiently self-governing and manage our finances in a way that didn't need the IMF handhold. What was that process like?
I think that was more of a Jamaican people affair, right? Think about the epoch construct. A wide range of stakeholders, civil society, to monitor Jamaica's program and report to the Jamaican people. To us, those are the elements that help hold the program together. Really, the fact that Jamaican identified themselves to the program, it was a homegrown problem, and homegrown solutions were needed, and that's exactly what happened.
However concerned, I mean, I remember at the start of the program, maybe up to just about 2 years ago, there was a strong belief that if the IMF presence was not there, that there could have been some slippage in terms of the program.
Yeah, I mean, having an independent
third party
always help, and that's why the Jamaican government is moving aggressively on the fiscal council front, and moving aggressively on ensuring central bank independence, and moving aggressively in strengthening the macro-fiscal capacity at the Ministry of Finance. So to have that home technical and institutional setup to entrench the gains that have been achieved over the past few years, it's really encouraging for us at this point.
A pain point along this road has been the Jamaican dollar. It has had its struggles. It's also had its successes. How have you seen that change in the value of the Jamaican dollar, and what does it mean for you?
I think that's probably one of the areas where we've seen a tremendous change in the way the foreign exchange market operates, because it used to be a market with a large footprint of the central bank, but the currency used to move one way, and reach a point where we assess the currency to be fairly valued.
And you got a lot of, at the start, you got a lot of beat up for where you had wanted the currency to be.
Not we, because we don't have nobody. I mean, we don't have nobody has a target value for the currency, because essentially your currency.
Although a lot of people felt that the IMF had a target value.
No, we never had a target.
But just purely that declaration that the Jamaican dollar was overvalued, that made headlines. Jamaican people were offended. Business people were concerned.
Yeah, overvaluation is a dynamic concept. So it might be overvalued today due to the specific conditions. If you're running large current account deficit, right, you're buying more from abroad than you're selling, your currency eventually will adjust to that. If your inflation is higher than your partner, eventually your currency will depreciate.
Yes.
So those were the driving forces. And since then, there was a significant correction in the Jamaican dollar. And we reached a point where, again, which is a dynamic phenomenon, where the currency was fairly valued. And that also coincided with the introduction of a more market mechanism for foreign exchange price determination.
But I need to ask you, Constant, I'm going to ask you, what is your biggest disappointment to the program, and what you think is the greatest success?
I mean, the greatest success, again, is ownership. I mean, I think it cut across that ownership, either be in terms of continuity across two political administrations, either be in terms of Jamaican monitoring their own program and reporting to their people. So ownership is certainly a case study, I mean, for other countries to emulate. In terms of disappointment, we believe, I mean, public sector transformation could have been more accelerated. Again, even there have been some progress. And with the 4-year wait,
not fast enough, eh?
Not fast enough, because it's a demanding process. Even at the beginning, the data or the information system that were needed to carry that in a sound way were not there. So and that's the process that is being followed.
I mean, throughout it all, we have not been able to address my challenge of labor productivity. Eh? We haven't really been able to address that in an effective way.
Yeah, labor productivity is such an encompassing concept, because essentially, I mean, your labor force, how productive your labor force depend on so many things, including even physical capital, right? Capital that firms have in place. It depends on the business climate, how costly it is for a firm to operate. So when you look at the output, and you're dividing by the number of people working, it's a very broad concept. So that would also include the human capital element, but that's not the only element.
But we haven't been able to deal with the labor market reform, which was one of the things that was put at the start of the agreement. Eh?
We didn't have labor market reform explicitly in the program, but absolutely. I mean,
and public sector reform, with the government being the largest employer, obviously, there would be elements there that would be required.
Broader. But again, even there have been some progress. We've seen merger and closures of public body in the effort to streamline the number of public bodies. There is work underway in designing the compensation structure of public sector workers. So there is progress. Could it have been faster? Yes, but there are constraints. There were constraints along the way.
Interesting financing mechanisms that have been put on the table, certainly in the last 6 months, and some conversations as well about ways of financing government expenditure. We see Wigton going on and listing an IPO We hear talks of the privatization of things like JPS, taking out government shares, same thing with the mortgage bank. We hear talks of a buyback of some of the loan that we have on Highway 2000 with a potential IPO. What's the capacity from where you sit for Jamaica to finance its own growth, as opposed to debt, which we were very heavily reliant on, that got us in the problem in the first place?
I mean, so that you're actually pointing to one of the beauty of the adjustment, because 7 years ago, the only game in town in terms of accessing finance was the government.
People.
So you reach a place now where the system is flush with cash, and the question is, how do you channel that cash to productive resources? So that in and of itself is progress. And yes, I mean, those projects can clearly, there is enough cash going.
But isn't that the point, Constant? We have the cash in the economy, but we don't have the labor productivity that's going to drive the real GDP growth that we need, because our greatest value added here is labor, eh?
Yeah, no, I mean, just think about, let's say, farmers, right? If you're thinking about the productivity in agriculture, it's still the case in Jamaica that if you rain too much, it's an issue. If it doesn't rain enough, it's an issue. And you're thinking about productivity in agriculture. Those are factors that affect your productivity. So there are exogenous, what I'm saying is there are exogenous factors, but obviously there are endogenous factors in terms of individuals themselves. And we hear a lot of story about people going back to school, right? To retool themselves, to adjust to the new Jamaica. I mean, this is a new Jamaica. So it's a process. And I believe as policy continue to be consistent, people will figure out that there are opportunities that need to be reaped, and they're going to do that.
What does the relationship look like with the IMF beyond today? Beyond November, Jamaica and the IMF? We
will continue to be a strong partner with Jamaica, but the nature of the relationship changed from one of a monitoring and agreeing on target to a more of a consultative role. We will continue to do our article for consultation with Jamaica, just as we do with my own country, Cameroon, with the United States and all other countries. All our 189 member countries, we do consult with them and do provide policy advice. But there will now be specific targets agreed upon that the government has to achieve.
Well, let me ask you this.
And obviously, we'll still continue to provide technical assistance where needed. Yeah, so.
So the IMF is more an advisory role now, right? The question
after
is...
November.
After November. The question is, can Jamaica sustain itself? And in particular, with the talk about a recession possibly on the horizon, do you think that we have strong enough institutional capacity to ensure that we don't slip?
Actually, when you think about the reform program, one of the main thrusts of the reform program is to increase what we call policy buffer. So what you want is to have policy room precisely for bad days. So if you ask me today, is Jamaica in a better place to withstand external shocks than 7 years ago? Absolutely yes. Because if your level of reserve is less than 1 billion, your capacity to respond to external shocks is weaker. Now we're talking reserves above 3 billion. It's a completely different picture.
Even with our heavy dependence on things like tourism and remittance that are definitely going to be susceptible to
I'm not saying that there is, I mean, Jamaica is a small open economy, so, you know, if there is
but we have, we have the piggy bank, eh? That's what you're saying. We have the piggy bank.
Yeah, you have your own local buffers, and we're still revising, updating our global economic outlook, which will be available sometime in October. We'll be able to speak to where we see the global economy going. But regardless, Jamaica is in a better position now to withstand shocks than it was the case. Just think about the debt to GDP ratio. When you're hit by a shock and your debt to GDP ratio is 147%, it's a completely different picture than when you're below 100. But I'm not saying that there will be no impact. But I'm saying in terms of the magnitude, we are in a completely different place.
I can't let you go and not ask you about the more human side of your 3 years here. Favorite Jamaican meal since you've been here in 3 years? The thing you're going to miss off a plate?
Curry goat. Certainly top the list.
Yes.
Maybe you allow me to, Oxtel will be the second.
Really?
Yeah.
And great memories that you take away, personal memories that you take away from Jamaica.
I think it has to be the champs for many reasons. No, I mean, when I
As
had
in boys and girls champs.
yes. When I was moving here, one of the things that I was excited about beyond the economics and the stuff was really to watch the fastest sprinters on earth.
Yeah.
And after the champs, I figured out how you guys do it. Because the passion, and just imagine 15, 14, 16-year-old, they're subject to the passion and pressure from their school. The world stage is a joke. You know? Once you went through the pressure and the passion that I've seen at the stadium, I mean, you can't withstand any pressure on the world stage. So, you know, that's probably very great.
So as we wrap up then, because we have to wrap up now, Constant, the lesson is then that the politicians should have gone and learned that boys champs 15 years ago.
Well, you guys have been doing it, right? You guys have been doing it. That's why you keep generating. It's not just the YAM that does it. I heard some story about YAM being...
Well, I have to say you were a pleasure to interview over the 3 years. It was good conversation.
Really good.
And I think a lot of people learned a lot and appreciated the conversation that we shared. So
thank you for the platform. It's been
thank you, Constant. You remember you're honorary Jamaican, right?
Oh, okay, thanks.
I want to space some will be carved out for you.
I'll be back as a visitor.
Absolutely.
And I will watch from far.
Folks, we take a break right here on Point. When we come back, we're talking possible recession.
Crow Jamaica Risk Management Services, RMS. Risk management has become indispensable to a company's business operations and management strategy in this complex environment nowadays. Crow Jamaica risk management experts help to turn every risk into an opportunity. We are experienced in providing customized solutions to manage risks and increase transparency and accountability of the companies. Our core services include internal audit, internal control review, corporate governance, corporate compliance, etc. Our team can help you make smarter, more effective decisions. Let's have a conversation. Contact us at email people@crowjm.com, website www.crowjm.com.
Welcome back to On Point. There are increasing talks about a global slowdown and a looming recession.
And the US-China trade war isn't making things any better. Here's more on that.
Buzz about an American recession is growing louder after Wall Street suffered its biggest day drop last week. According to the latest data released by IHS Markit, the U.S. Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index dropped to 49.9 in August, flashing a sign of contraction for the first time since September 2009. Any indicator that's below the neutral 50 threshold is considered a warning of contraction. On August 13th, the Trump administration delayed planned tariffs on China. The U.S. president earlier announced an additional 10% tariff on $300 billion worth of Chinese goods. In a separate move, the U.S. Commerce Department accepted Chinese tech giant Huawei for another 90 days from the so-called entities list for national security reasons. Ron Chengfei, the founder and CEO of Huawei, said Tuesday he expected no relief from U.S. export curbs given the political climate in Washington, but expressed confidence in the company's bright future. On Friday, Huawei released its latest artificial intelligence chip, Ascend 910, and its matching open-source computing framework, MindSpore. The company says the new technology is part of its bid to expand into AI and semiconductors. While U.S. companies have long pleaded with the White House to stop the tit-for-tat tariff escalation, citing harm to consumers and their businesses, Mr. Trump has been undeterred. As the U.S. president counts on the economy to give him a second term in the White House, is the cost of the trade war hitting too close to home?
Joining us now to talk a little bit about Jamaica's ability to stand the shocks of a looming recession, we have Professor of International Business and Pro-Vice Chancellor at the University of the West Indies, Professor Denzel Williams. Welcome.
Thank you. What's happening? I mean, people are talking about a recession. I mean, people have memories of what happened in 2008, 2009. Are we in a better position today?
Well, it's interesting because
before 2008, when you talked about a recession, people usually go back to 1939.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're talking about it just a decade after. The truth is that I think where we are now, there are signs that we can possibly get into a recession. As you would appreciate, the major factors that would be leading to this would be the uncertainty surrounding Brexit. If UK crashes out of the EU without a deal, that has a significant impact on the
US
global
China
economy.
trade war.
And the next big one is the uncertainty surrounding US-China trade. Now, those things, and then you see Germany as
Yes.
well getting into some serious troubles.
Yes.
Now, if those signs continue within the next 12 to 24 months,
We'll
there is no
definitely
doubt
see
that the
it,
world
yeah.
will be heading into a recession, because what will happen is that investors will be looking at trying to guess the game, and as a result of that, they will hold on in their investments, and as a result of that, global demand being suppressed, and there will also be a suppression in output.
Well,
now, if that is the case, then we're definitely heading
Yeah.
for the recession.
I like to think of this though as a man-induced recession, because
Yes.
everything that made it happen is really just bad policy.
Well, you see, all of them are man-induced, but this
Yeah,
one,
but this one is
especially is
yeah.
deliberate.
Yeah.
Because really, what is happening is that there is a kind of a lack of appreciation for economic fundamentals, and because of that lack of appreciation, then policymakers just think that they can do anything.
Yes.
So it's a lack of
Women fancy.
appreciation by the
By the global
government,
policymakers, yes.
by the policymakers,
Yes,
those
absolutely. Because if you could just easily get up tomorrow morning, I think you can just impose a tariff on a country and expect that the country is not going to retaliate in some shape or form, or you can just take your country out of an economic union without putting proper measures in place to safeguard employment, safeguard production, then clearly you don't have an appreciation for the policy fundamentals, and you think that you can just make policy on the fly, and as a result of that, it will, just come into being. Well, that's not how economies work at all. There are certain fundamentals that you just have to stick to. But come back to your general point about Jamaica. The truth is that I hear commentators make the suggestion that Jamaica is in a better place today than they were 2008. And yes, while that is true, let us not lose sight of the fact that if this recession really materializes in the next 12 to 24 months, the truth is that Jamaica can be in a very tough place. As we will see from now, as you know, Dennis, you follow these numbers very well, but when Jamaica grows, the major sectors that grow would have been tourism, mining, agriculture. Once those grow, Jamaica naturally grows.
Yes.
Now, if you think about a slowdown in global demand,
gonna
the
affect all of them.
first thing that's going to be hit would be the mining sector,
Yes, yes.
as you see right now that is happening.
And
then
remittances.
tourism, and then remittances.
Yes.
And as you know, remittances has a significant impact as well on the level of disposable income that people have. And as a result of that, without remittance flow, a lot more people would be below the poverty line. So remittances will be hit as well. The bauxite sector will be heavily hit. Tourism will be heavily hit. If you have all those three being hit at the same time, Jamaica is in a tough position.
You're talking about 70%
Yes?
of your foreign exchange earnings.
Absolutely. So what you should not be doing is to take it lightly that although your macroeconomic fundamentals are stronger today than they were 2008, that if a recession comes, then you won't be heavily impacted. You will be heavily impacted. So what you need to do now is to prepare yourself so that you can have enough resources to stimulate local demand. That is really what you're going to have to do.
Because the argument coming out of, say, the Ministry of Tourism is we're diversifying our markets. Those markets that are recession risk,
Right.
at a recession risk, which most of our tourists come from today, we're diversifying those markets. So we're looking at some other markets to be able to create a buffer. Not an argument
And
that you buy.
that's not a bad argument, except to say that, remember, it's a global recession.
Yes.
It's not a US recession or a China recession. It will be a global recession. So what you'll have to do, the most foolproof policy that you have to start looking at is how you stimulate local demand. And to do that, you will have to have a good buffer in terms, and that is why it's important to start running a strong fiscal surplus now, so that if this thing should come, then you have something that you can use to stimulate demand in your local economy.
But how much so can we save ourselves? 5 million tourists, can we generate that kind of currency internally? When you talk about the mining numbers, there's nothing we can do there. And remittance, there's a heavy percentage of Jamaicans that are dependent on that remittance coming every
absolutely.
2 weeks.
But what I'm saying is that in order to cushion the impact, because if you don't have that fiscal space that can help you to actually stimulate local demand, for example, in construction, in road works, and all those types of things, then the impact will be even much greater. And so what you want to do is to be able to have that buffer that you can do that now. And that is why it is important for you to run high primary surplus now and also run high fiscal surpluses now.
So you will fall, but the fall won't be as hard.
Yes.
Right.
There's no doubt that you will fall.
Yeah, talk about that. So you talk about preparedness. One of the things I think that went wrong for us in 2008 was we had some senior cabinet ministers saying a recession is going to be good for us.
Yes, absolutely.
And
because because of the lack of understanding of that this is really a global recession, because the idea was that if there was a recession and the US get hit, then most businesses will move to us. Yes. And as a result of that, we will be better off. I think that was the thinking then, but recognizing that this is a global recession and the same business that you're expecting to move to you, they're the businesses that are being heavily hit. And as a result of that, they don't have the ability to spread themselves across the globe. So that's why the argument even about diversifying away from the recession is, yes, it can be an acute argument, but it's not the most sound argument that
and what people don't understand is that when you have a recession, is really that consumers stop buying.
That's the point.
And
exactly.
It don't matter where a business go to.
Correct.
If consumers stop buying. And the other thing
is why you need counter-cyclical policy, which is where the government now would have to stimulate the demand through government spending. But if you don't have the money to stimulate that demand through government spending, then you're in a worse position. And that's why I'm arguing that what you should have is government having the necessary resources now. So if that time should come and consumers are not spending, investors are not coming in, the government can at least trigger the aggregate demand so that you don't have that great of a fall.
So new emerging industries that perhaps we would not have a strong presence with back in 2008 that we are developing now in a meaningful way. Things like the BPO, we're very dependent now, and our growth strategy is in things like the BPO, servicing some of these very customers in these very markets that we're looking at a recession.
That will definitely take a hit, because
takes a hit.
Yes, because if you think about it, the BPO will be servicing, just use an example, AT&T.
Right.
So if there's a global recession and AT&T has to lay off significant number of workers, meaning that a number of customers won't be going to AT&T again, then AT&T don't need all of your services that you're actually providing.
Well, talk about that now, Denzel, because one of the challenges for us, particularly with our bauxite sector too, is that our bauxite sector only does well when the global economy is doing well. Because we have a peculiar problem called labor productivity that works against us, isn't that so? And if we don't address that, we'll always be one of the first hit.
Well, you see, as you talk about labor productivity, the challenge there is that there are a lot of inefficiencies in the system.
Yes.
And if you're not efficient, and at a time when you have a suppression in global demand, then you don't have much room within which to say, be innovative, because you have to be dealing with cleaning up inefficiencies. And as a result of that, you'll always be left behind. So you talk about the bauxite, for example. If you think about where we are, we continue to sell significantly just the dirt that we pick up from the earth. How much of that is converted to value-added products that you can now sell, and that would also be able to be recession-proof. So whether or not you have a recession, there are certain things that people still want, and you'll be able to sell those types of things, and therefore
that is where productivity works against us.
Yeah, because if you're not, if you have to clean up the inefficiency, then you don't have the time to innovate, to get those products and goods and services that people would still want, despite there being a recession. Yeah.
So then, if it was thrown to you and the government said to you, Professor, what do we have to do to ensure that we're in a better position to deal with this?
Well, the first position, as I said before, just right now, given that the signs are there, you must make sure that you actually tighten your fiscal account so that you can at least build up some surpluses, so that when that time comes, if and when it comes, you will have sufficient
surpluses that you can now use to stimulate demand. And when we talk about stimulating demand, you can actually make investments in strategic industries that are going to actually create employment, create the types of jobs that are needed. So that to me is the first priority, to make sure that you're not fiscally reckless. Not because you have some surpluses now, you're just going to spend it, but you need to, as we say in Jamaica, save for that rainy day. I think that is going to be the key. If you don't have that and the recession comes and you're caught without anything that you can use to stimulate global aggregate demand locally, then you're going to have to depend on the international market for that stimulation. The international market is already suppressed, so there is nothing that is going to be coming your way.
The indicator for a lot of people that there is a pending recession, 12 to 24 months, is what the stock market is doing in many of those very countries that we've been talking about. And with a very healthy, top-performing Jamaican stock market, should we be looking at the numbers there? Are our listings on the Jamaica Stock Exchange recession-proof?
No, absolutely. I think, I can't recall the exact article, but someone in the multilateral made a point recently that yes, Jamaica stock market is performing well, but it is not unexpected, you know, and Dennis would know. I mean, the capital goes where the rate of return is highest. And because we are a small country, we have a lot of inefficiencies and stuff, it is easy for our markets to actually perform or outperform global markets where there are not a lot of inefficiencies, all right? And as a result of that, you can see this buoyancy in performance. But that does not mean that we're out of the woods in that regard, because what it's really saying is that a lot of the investments is actually taking up a lot of the inefficiencies in the market. They're actually doing arbitrage, basically, yeah? So clearly our stock market is, although it's performing well, this is not a signal that everything is well in the economy.
Yeah. So Denzel, let me ask you, a lot of university professors have made their prediction. What is your prediction on the possibility of a recession in the next year or next 24 months?
Good question. Let us start from where I started this interview. So if we can deal with Brexit in an orderly way, and if we can deal with China-US trade war in an orderly way, I think the probability of a recession is much lower. Much, much lower. And as you would have seen when Trump came back from the G7, markets actually started to temper a bit because he did make a very important statement to say that China seems to be willing to come to the table and I'm now willing to talk. That alone gave confidence into investors to say, if they both come to the table, then we can see an ease back of this thing. So the real issue is how orderly Brexit will be. So October is going to be an important point in all of this discussion. Let us see what happens on October 31.
Right,
if they crash out of the EU,
that's a critical date.
Yes, that's a critical date to determine where these things are going to go.
Yeah.
So if October 31st come and the UK crashes out of the EU, then there is an impending sign. Second thing, where Germany is going as well. As you know, the largest economy in the European Union. If Germany continues on this path and they have another period of negative growth, that again is going to be a big sign. And then the final sign is whether or not Trump can sit with the Chinese president and they can discuss how orderly they're going to deal with this trade thing. If those things happen within the next 3 to 4 months, the truth is that the fear of a recession will be much lower. But if that can't happen by October, November, I can tell you straight off that we are going to be heading for a recession.
Within the next year?
Yes.
So therefore we need
within
to watch
2020.
We need to watch Trump's Twitter handle.
Watch Trump's Twitter handle, watch Boris Johnson, what he's doing.
So this could be the first social media recession.
But you also have to watch Boris Johnson, what he's doing as well, because do not underestimate Britain crashing out of the EU and the impact that will actually have. Big impact. Yes?
Yeah.
Very interesting times ahead. Thank you so much, Professor Williams. We take a break, folks. When we come back, we've got your numbers and the word on the street.
Island Eyewear. Your price, your style.
Great design is not only how things look, but also how well they work. The GLC, more than meets the eye.
Welcome back to On Point. The last global recession started out in the United States, and it had devastating effects on that country's economy. How bad was it? Take a look at the numbers.
Estimates suggest that the 2008 financial and economic crisis cost Americans some $12.8 trillion US. This figure included estimated actual gross domestic product (GDP) loss from 2008 to 2018 of $7.6 trillion US. Long-term impact saw some 23.1 million Americans, or 15% of the public, being out of work or unable to find full-time jobs. Some 9.3 million Americans lost their health insurance, while 11 million homeowners, that's almost 1 in 4, were saddled with mortgages higher than the value of their homes.
And our On Point team hit the streets and asked Jamaicans, are you confident that Jamaica can withstand the economic shocks of another global recession?
Jamaica, I don't know if we could survive another recession. Huh? Well, we're just recovering, and I don't really think we're at the stage where we can effectively keep off severe impacts that can result from a recession.
I don't know. I worry. I wouldn't worry if it happened.
I think they will fare off well. I think the government will put things in place to cushion for such.
You come like another recession right now, because how we see things around, the government are trying still, but I think we can do a little better. But let's hope and pray for the current Prime Minister that something work for him, and something will happen for the country.
First of all, we'll probably have a lot of chaos on the road. People will probably start looting, going for the supermarkets first, trying to get stock up on food items and stuff like that. But that would only happen if everything really fell into, social chaos and stuff. To me, the important thing is that the government give people as much information as you can give them, so that they know what is happening. Don't let it be like 2008. Things started happening and people started worrying and all of that. Give us as much information so that we can know what's happening, what's happening not just in Jamaica, but how what happens in America affects us.
Corporate restructuring services. In today's evolving commercial and economic environment, businesses are continually seeking opportunities to manage operating costs and tax positions, as well as contain cash expenditures. Entity structuring can help achieve these goals, but often presents many challenges for multinational corporations. In addition, the OECD's Base Erosion and Profit Shifting (BEPS) proposals are expected to impact the bottom line of affected organizations and result in some business restructuring. Crow Jamaica delivers an integrated approach to clients' corporate and reorganization needs. Services include simplifying group structures, executing domestic and cross-border transactions including mergers, demergers, disposals, and company migrations, transferring assets and business units, aligning legal structures to business models, establishing national or regional hubs, converting subsidiary company structures to branch structures and vice versa, integrating legal structures following a merger or acquisition, providing practical advice and assistance throughout the planning, development, and implementation phases of corporate reorganizations. Crow Jamaica assists businesses and other advisors in developing and implementing efficient, cost-effective legal structures and business operating models. Our team can help you make smarter, more effective decisions. Let's have a conversation. Contact us at email people@crowjm.com. Website www.crowjm.com.
Your business matters. Business Access TV offers you the most innovative and effective advertising solution for your business, specializing in B2B sales, cost-effective solutions, the customers you want, the repetition you need. No matter the size and nature of your company, your business matters. Call us at 876-618-2870 or email us at sales@batvja.com. Business Access TV, serious about business.
3 years has really flown by with Dr. Constant Nonken Ngwana. There we go. It's been 3 years. I think so much has changed with us as a people in the last 3 years.
But
and he's been witness to that.
Yeah. Our mindset has changed significantly because I remember in 2012, 2013, I remember when the thing started. I remember when the global recession was here. I remember the mindset at the time, the blame of the IMF, the feeling of despair, you know, and today, look where we are today.
To his credit, and certainly to ours, all along when you talk to Dr. Constant Nonken Ngwana, there's always this Jamaica did it.
Yeah.
You sometimes want to give the IMF credit for that steady hand that they have had along the way, but they're always quick to push back and say, you know, this was a commitment by the people of Jamaica. And you have to celebrate EPOC in the middle of all of this and the role that they played in ensuring that we were able to walk the path that we committed to.
Yeah, no, definitely. EPOC played a critical role. If it wasn't for EPOC and someone of the stature of Richard Ball, who's now BOJ governor, I don't think that we would have made it this far because the parliamentary indiscipline was still there. And if they did not have the private sector looking over their shoulders, I really believe that they would have gone back to their old ways.
Another important thing is that imperative that we all recognize collectively what needed to be done. And I think Constant said it in the interview that it was Jamaica against the world. People doubted that we were able to do this. And to recognize that the IMF program stretched across 2 administrations, and both administrations recognized that they couldn't be the one that dropped the ball. That's number one. And number 2, they recognize the importance of ensuring that the commitments that we made, we were able to stick to it. I think we also have to give credit to both administrations, finance ministers who got it.
But you know, etched in my memory, in terms of what the turning point is, was always that press conference that Peter Phillips had where he seemed like he was on the verge of tears because of the pressure that he was under, because he wanted to do this and he had a lot of opposition against him. You know, so I always remember that moment.
It's a tense moment in November coming up because we now are going to look forward to Chapter Next. And Chapter Next is going to be a chapter where we have to hold ourselves 100% accountable going forward to ensure that we don't bury ourselves in debt to the point where we're in the kind of problems that we found ourselves in a decade ago. So as much as we celebrate, we can't celebrate for too long. We still have to keep our eye on the ball of the kind of Jamaica that we leave for our children and our grandchildren.
Particularly going into a possible recession, you know, going to know Denzel Williams, you know, when he was talking, that it can have a significant impact on us. So the 2 conversations are linked because if we don't ensure that the institutional capacity is there to resist the temptations that can come with a recession, then we could find ourselves easily back in the situation.
Absolutely, Dennis. And on that note, we've got to say thanks to the folks who made the show happen. It's good being back. Thanks to the very hardworking production crew, all the sponsors that came together to make this happen. I'm Patria King.
And I'm Dennis Chung. Until next week.
On Point was brought to you by Crow Jamaica.
Ready for cable for as little as $100? Ready for no monthly cable bill? Ready for 10 TV channels absolutely free? Then pick up our Ready TV box at authorized stores for $4,500. Hook it up to your TV set, then top it up with Ready Credit for 1, 7, or 30 days. Buy now and get $1,000 free Ready Credit and start watching your favorite shows. Pick it up, hook it up, top it up. Ready TV. Prepaid cable TV when you're ready. Now serving Kingston and St. Catherine. Limited time offer while stocks last. Conditions apply.
It's season 12, and Wealth Magazine Business Access is here to keep you business savvy. With an impressive mix of some of Jamaica's most inspiring business moguls, we continue to keep Jamaica informed, empowered, and ready to dominate. Tune in Sundays at 5 p.m. only on BATV.
You're watching
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access TV.
Serious about business.
Going back to school after a long, exciting summer with your family and friends can be a bit rough. But look on the bright side, you will be going out tomorrow in your new shoes, your new bag, your new hairstyle, almost new everything to kickstart the school year. And if nothing else, a new attitude and a new opportunity to be better and do better. Think about all the fun you will have learning and exploring with your new teacher and classmates. Stay focused and enjoy it all. Welcome to Jamaica Magazine. I am Theodore Henry. We have an interesting show lined up just for you, so stay tuned as your favorite magazine unfolds.
The Office of the Children's Advocate is very aware that we have some parents who get particularly anxious at the start of a new school year. And so we really just wanted to share with you a few tips that you can utilize to help keep your children, especially the very young ones who are going out for the first time, nice and safe from sexual abuse. Parents need to recognize that the private parts, as we call them, or the genitalia, are regular parts of the body. And so in teaching your children about the forehead and the nose and the hand, you can also teach them the names of these body parts, because that does two things. It puts them in a position to speak about these parts when something is going wrong, and it also tells them that even though they're private parts, it's not too private to talk about, particularly with a parent. Children need to know that there should be no secrets between them and their parents or guardians. Oftentimes, when persons want to abuse children, they tend to encourage them to keep a little secret. You know, this is between me and you. But from very early, parents need to establish with their children that the lines of communication are open. Mommy and daddy, or auntie and uncle, or whoever is the responsible adult in that child's life, can actually have a discussion, age appropriate of course, about anything at all that may be troubling the child. The third tip is that parents need to cultivate throughout the child's lifespan that environment whereby the child feels comfortable to speak. Conversation should not be off limit, topics should not be taboo, and you really need to get to a stage whereby you have teachable moments, we call them. So we see a lot of things reported in the newspapers, sometimes on the nightly news, and we can use some of these instances of horrible things that are happening to other children to start little discussions with our own children to give them tips as to how they can avoid or prevent, perhaps completely, any such reality happening to them. For these tips, and of course any other information that deals with children, that is anyone under 18 years, please feel free to contact the Office of the Children's Advocate. We're at 72 Harbour Street, downtown Kingston, and our numbers are 948-1134, or website www.oca.gov.jm.
Well, I dare to make a difference, and I dare to take a stand. Let me dare you to think of someone else who's in need of a helping hand.
The Development Bank of Jamaica provides loans for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. So if you are interested in starting a business or seeking an advance to improve the one you already have, get all the facts next.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm your host, Anthros Campbell. Today we're discussing the critical issue of access to financing by micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs. The Development Bank of Jamaica, the DBJ, has been facilitating this process, and in studio is General Manager of the Strategic Services Division, Christopher Brown. Mr. Brown, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
What a big title that is. What do you do?
At the Development Bank, there are many activities that I'm responsible for. The primary one is capacity development for the bank, but I'm also in charge of strategic planning and research and product development for the bank.
Let's start with the MSMEs. What are the services you lend them? We know that people that need money and they are considered to be the engine of growth as it relates to growth and development, yes?
Correct.
So what services do you offer to them?
Well, one of our primary services, as I mentioned, is capacity development.
Yes.
So we understand that MSMEs, in order to operate their businesses more efficiently and even get investors, whether they're going for a loan or a private investor, they themselves need to be ready. So we have a number of different programs that gives grants and technical assistance to help these MSMEs to understand how to operate their business better. It could be training programs to teach you how to do proper accounting. We have programs that allow you to actually get the accounting services done, get business plans done, get marketing plans done. I would say a number of the different requirements that the banks will say you need to have in order to access loans. So there are a number of different programs we have. We give grants of up to $4 million, dependent on the different program, that will allow businesses to test their ideas, especially if what they're doing is very innovative.
Grants mean that they don't have to pay it back, right?
That is
so
correct.
$4 million.
Right. So
yes.
Some of the programs, we have a program currently called the Ignite program, which is focused on innovative businesses. So somebody bringing a new product or a new process to the market. They were able to get $4 million to be able to develop that prototype and help to bring it to the market, so to make it commercially viable. Yeah. There are other programs we have, which is our Voucher for Technical Assistance program, which allows any business to get up to $200,000 in grants to be able to get the necessary documents that I mentioned. Get a business plan done, get your accounting done, get your financial statements done, as well as, I think there are at least 20 other services that you can get access to with that particular program.
For that money that you don't have to pay back. So how does that work, though? How do you help in this regard? Do you actually have a technocrat who sits with the persons and help them to do the business plan, or that's how it works?
Well, currently there's a portal, dbjvoucher.com, that you can visit, and it will list all the services that we offer. It will also list the accredited business development organizations which you can go to. So you'll get a voucher, you carry it to one of these technocrats, technical service providers, and they would be able to give the necessary assistance that you require based on the voucher that you particularly have.
So how do people know about these facilities? What are you doing to ensure that people know about these facilities?
Well, there are a number of different marketing campaigns that we run. Opportunities like this where we come here, we tell people about the different programs we have. We partner with the approved financial institutions or commercial banks or microfinance institutions or other financial institutions who offer our services to let their clients know about these particular services.
So the approved financial institutions, these are regular banks?
That's correct.
Yes.
In addition to commercial banks, we have credit unions that are approved financial institutions. So SMEs that want DBJ financing can go to 23 different financial institutions
across the island
to ask for a specific DBJ loan. And what they will get are loans at concessionary rates or concessionary terms. So either lower interest rates than what you would normally get walking into the bank, or for longer 10 years or a longer time for you to repay the loan. Maybe it's normally 5 years. In this, you can get up to 10 years.
Right. So you have some control over the interest rates that the institutions will lend?
Well, dependent on the program we have, we indicate to the banks that they should not lend above a certain amount. So it isn't, the misconception out there is that we lend to the banks and then the banks add on a lot more interest rate and makes our money more expensive. But it's quite the contrary. What we do is we indicate that there is, let's say, a maximum that the interest rate can be to try and ensure that MSMEs still get at concessionary rates.
All right, tell me, who is a
MSME?
MSME, right.
Okay, MSME, well, it's micro, small, and medium-sized enterprise.
Who is micro, who is small? What
micro
qualifies?
is, if your annual revenue is less than 15 million J, you'd qualify as a micro entrepreneur business. If you're less than 75, so between 15 and 75 million annual revenue, would be a small business. And then a medium-sized business would be 425 million or less.
Okay, all right. So I need a loan from DBJ, not from DBJ, but through your facility.
Right.
The first thing I do, I approach the bank or the institution, and I say I would like to, what's the step? Tell us about
So when
steps.
you go to the bank, any of these financial or approved financial institutions, you indicate that you want a DBJ loan. They will tell you there are different requirements that you need to bring. It's a business plan, a marketing plan, to show that you have some kind of management capacity.
Yes.
What you can do at that point in time is log on to our voucher portal, apply for a voucher, and carry it to one of these service providers. Okay. After you get what the banks have asked you to provide, you can go into the bank and then request a particular loan amount. Let's say it is $10 million you want to borrow. They would typically ask you to have collateral to be able to secure the loan. This is where DBJ's credit enhancement facility comes in, where we will guarantee up to $30 million or 80% of the loan.
Let's continue with this discussion on the enhancement fund when we return from the break.
Okay.
We want a productive Jamaica. We are not productive Jamaicans. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity is the way to go for all us Jamaicans. Small business, big business, old and young, we are tell every woman and man. We want growth and prosperity, free a better nation with a building plan. So we can build our product and sell our product and put more money in our hand. Our economy can rise to a level and build a better nation. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity.
Productivity, Pathway to Prosperity. A message brought to you by the Jamaica Productivity Center, a department of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We continue our discussion with Christopher Brown, who is the General Manager for Strategic Services Division at the Development Bank of Jamaica, the DBJ. Mr. Brown, when we were going to the break, we were talking about the Credit Enhancement Facility. Tell us about that.
Okay, so the Credit Enhancement Facility is really a guarantee program. So it helps businesses that don't have enough collateral to get collateral support from the DBJ. So currently, our program allows for us to provide a guarantee of up to 80% of the loan amount at to a maximum of $30 million. So if a small business is borrowing $30 million, DBJ would provide a guarantee for 80% of that. So 20% or just about is what the MSME would have to find to be able to get access to the facility. And we think this is a critical driver for the ecosystem, the marketplace at the moment, because we understand that small businesses may not have enough collateral to be able to access the necessary financing to improve their operations. So we've introduced this particular program. And what we really want is we want the banks to recognize DBJ as that key facilitator. So any bank that is interested in lending MSME loans needs to take advantage of the Credit Enhancement Facility.
Right, so you just guarantee 80% of the loan without What, without anything, just like that?
We believe strongly in the development of MSMEs, and we want to really partner with our banks to be able to make that a reality. And the banks themselves may see it as kind of risky for lending to MSMEs, so we are stepping in to really help them to lend more to micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises.
All right. Other services to the MSMEs, tell me about.
Okay, so I would mention 2 other services that we have. We're working on a new program currently called Reverse Factoring, which allows small businesses who normally get paid in 60, 90 days, different credit terms, and it takes a long time for them to actually get paid, for them to be able to be paid early.
Yes.
So when the program starts, you would see MSMEs being able to get paid within 5 or 10 days versus waiting 60 or 90 days to be able to get funding. So it's a very innovative product that we're looking at launching, which should be launched by the end of this year or early next year, and it would help businesses to get the working capital, the money that they need on a quicker basis to be able to turn it more efficiently.
Right, so this will provide a release of the funds faster.
Correct. And then another program that we have is our venture capital program, which allows businesses to get equity investment. So there are 2 different types of money that you would get. One is a loan that you'd have to pay back on a monthly basis, and then the other is equity, which is really some kind of ownership in the business where there is dividends that is paid more as return. And that is patient capital. So it's not intended to be repaid immediately, but you can take a longer time to be able to pay out anything out of your business. So it really helps your business. It's money that doesn't require a return immediately, but over a longer period of time.
Doesn't require them sending you, going to the bank to pay back money. So it's like a 60
day. It's probably more like a 5-year kind of time span. Yes, so an equity investor, the funds that we have, they would look to invest in businesses. And yes, they expect to get a return, but they expect to get a return over a longer period of time instead of on an ongoing basis.
And that is also through the banks?
No, it's through different funds. So we invest in private equity funds, and those funds will then invest in small and medium-sized enterprises. We actually have a fund that we're planning to launch next year called the SME Fund. It wouldn't be a DBJ SME fund, but we are helping the private sector to set it up and invest in small and medium-sized enterprises.
What are some of the issues you're having with MSME owners who are not coming forward because you have all of this money to unlend, but I've heard the cry all the time that people are not taking them alone. What are the problems? And tell us what we're to do to ensure that we get the funding or to access the funding,
Right. I think there are a number of businesses who believe it is better to remain in this informal state.
Yes.
But something we try to encourage all the businesses is that the more formalized you get is the more access you get to these services. So most of the services I'm mentioning, you need to be a registered entity to get access to. So we strongly encourage the formalization. The other thing is that a number of the businesses are not sure how to manage these operations, and that's one of the complaints on the bank side, that the businesses themselves are not ready. The programs we have, such as the Voucher for Technical Assistance, the Ignite program, or other capacity building programs, are geared at fixing that particular issue, helping businesses to get themselves more structured, get their books in order, have them be able to walk into a bank and say, this is, or to an investor, it doesn't have to be a bank, to say, this is what my business looks like. I'm a good business to invest in.
So you don't leave them as soon as they get the loan, right? You will stay with them and help them as they build to become...
After they get a loan, they can continue to accessing these services that we have to help them to manage the business. Well, the programs that I mentioned are grant programs, so there is no cost to pay back the DBJ.
Yes. There's another initiative called the FETA, FETA?
FETA.
Tell us about that.
So FETA is another one of our capacity development programs, which was really more on the side of financial literacy. So we're teaching micro-entrepreneurs about the importance of managing your books, keeping particular records. It doesn't have to be this fancy accounting firm that you go in, but you can be using an exercise book and writing what you sell for a particular day, as well as passing your money through a bank. There are people who have these cash-based businesses and there's no evidence that they are earning the amount that they say they earn. And then they walk into a bank to try and get financing, but the banks have no record that you are actually earning the amount you say. So we encourage businesses, if you sell something today, deposit in the bank. If you need to draw it out the following day, because you need to buy goods on a continuous basis, then you do that. But that indicates to the bank that you are actually making money and that you are a good client for them to lend to.
Talk to us about the take-up of these offers that you have.
Right. Well, over the past 4 years, we've supported over 3,000 MSMEs in getting capacity building, access to capacity building services. Again, whether it's in the voucher program or the FETA or any other capacity building program. And we've seen where this has had impact on these businesses. The businesses have been able to go into a bank and get access to a loan, or even just manage their businesses more effectively and turn more revenue. The whole purpose of business is to be able to generate revenue so you can employ more people and grow. That's what we're about, helping the businesses to do.
Okay. Any success stories you want to share with them before we go?
We have many success stories.
Yes.
There are companies who have come through our programs within the university. They have accessed our grant from our Ignite program. They've gone on to borrow loans from a bank and also gone on to getting equity investment as well. So they've gone through the full gamut of the cycle of business.
So there are opportunities, and we're urging our small and medium enterprises to come on out and get funds from DVJ, get help to do your business plans and so on. Thank you so very much for sharing with us today on this program.
It was my pleasure.
Good. If you are an MSME owner and need funding, make sure to contact the Development Bank of Jamaica at 876-929-4000 and speak with an agent. You may also visit their website, dbankjm.com, to learn more about their products and services. This has been Get the Facts with our guest, Christopher Brown, General Manager for Strategic Services Division at the Development Bank of Jamaica. To watch this program again, log on to our social media handle at YouTube.com/WatchJIS. You may also stay connected to our website at jis.gov.jm for more information. Until next time, I'm Enthros Campbell. Take good care.
Jamaica Social Investment Fund, JSIF, celebrating over 20 years of investment in community development. JSIF has forged relationships with international funding partners as well as private and public sector entities. Let us continue to invest to reduce vulnerabilities. Let us build our social capital and resilient infrastructures to ensure full participation in Vision 2030. JSIF, investing for community development.
By now, you should have cleaned your shoes and maybe in the process of packing your school bag. But just so you don't leave anything behind, let's go over a few things that should be in your bag this school year.
For infant schools, we're recommending a dark-colored bag because we want to reduce the number of times we're washing the bags. And children play a lot, bags get dirty. We also want to ensure that in the bag, there is a water bottle. Water is important because as children play, they get dehydrated, and this will actually affect how comfortable they are. So we want to ensure that there's water in the bag so that they're sipping throughout the day. Now, especially for preschoolers, as they're entering schools for the first time, we know that there is separation anxiety. One of the things that we recommend is a toy. It helps them to be just a little more comfortable with that transition to school. Another thing that we want to place in the bag is a blanket. Children need sleep time, and so the blanket, a nice clean blanket, is good to add to the bag. Another thing that we recommend is a pencil case. We want a pencil case that is durable and one that can secure the pencils. Of course, you can't have a school bag without notebooks. One of the things we recommend is lighter notebooks for the children who are smaller, because we do not want the bag to become too heavy. In the notebook, it's also advisable that you put an emergency contact number. What would be recommended also is a change of uniform, so that if they get dirty, they can change off. A clean rag is also recommended to dry their hands, and also perhaps to wipe their faces. As times get hot, they become sweaty, we need a fresh rag. For children who are transitioning to primary or high school, you will notice that we have a bigger bag. So let's look at what should go in the bag. First of all, there is a smart device that we're recommending. Of course, you're going to refer to your school's policies regarding cell phones or other smart devices. But as we prepare our children for 21st century learning, if it is that the policy supports this, then we recommend that you ensure that there is a smart device so that the children can be using these to support their learning as dictated by their teachers. We also recommend hand sanitizer. In some situations, a teacher might want to keep the hand sanitizer for the student, and so you refer depending on the teacher or the school. Of course, we are also purporting hydration. We have to ensure that children remain hydrated. When children get hot, they become uncomfortable, and this affects teaching and learning. And of course, as a partner of the Jamaica Moves campaign, we're also suggesting water as opposed to other sugary drinks. Toiletry is very important. So we have a Ziploc bag here, and we have toilet paper and a piece of paper towel. And there is also wipes. Let's go to the inside of the bag. What's in here? We continue to ensure our children are equipped with the writing implements, but for security purposes, we suggest that you give them a case to house the paper, scissors, the pens and pencils. There are also exercise books. Now, these exercise books are a little heavier because, as you know, primary school and high school require more note-taking. So these are a little heavier. One of the things we must also have is a planner, because homework is very important. So we recommend that you write down the homework so that you can ensure that those are submitted on the due dates. Of course, you must have the textbooks. Now, textbooks can be many, and they too can be heavy. So depending on what homework is assigned, you might want to work with a class teacher to also store some of these textbooks. So only the ones that will support homework will make it home. And you know, weather is also unpredictable. So we recommend an umbrella, a lightweight umbrella, or a rain cloak if you have it. We don't want our children getting ill, because this will affect their attendance to school and ultimately affect learning. And that is it for what goes in the bag. We wish you a successful year. All the best.
It just makes sense that while we make hay as the sun shines, we should also save for the rainy days, because even as we all strive to rule our own destiny, life holds some inevitable and unexpected outcomes for which we should be as prepared as possible. Get the help you need now through the National Insurance Scheme. The NIS offers financial security when it's most needed to all gainfully employed or self-employed persons who contribute to this scheme. Whether it's loss of income due to injury on the job, sickness, retirement, and/or death of a breadwinner, there will be help waiting for you and your family. So if you are over 18 years of age and working, visit your nearest Ministry of Labour and Social Security parish office and get registered under the NIS. Start making your contributions in order to reap the numerous social protection benefits when that rainy day occurs. Email prunit@mlss.gov.jm or call 876-922-8000 to 13 for more information.
Thanks for watching another edition of Jamaica Magazine. Do join us again tomorrow when we'll do this all over again. Remember to follow us on our social media pages and even check out our website at jis.gov.jm. Also, feel free to send your feedback on today's show to Jamaica Magazine at jis.gov.jm. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.
CARFESTA 14 wound down in Trinidad and Tobago over the past weekend. And what a time it was. Jacine Dunkley Malcolm takes a look back at the 10 days of the Caribbean's mega cultural festival.
Thanks, Michelle. I can't believe it's already the end of CARFESTA 14. It feels like only yesterday that I was in the stands at the Queen's Park Savannah for the opening of the festival, where they had such a display of cultural performances depicting the various countries across the region. There was just so much here for you to see, so many activities, so many events, from dance to music to drama, spoken word, fashion, including this top and this necklace that I'm wearing from two of the exhibitors who were here. There was also the Grand Market, where you could literally walk the streets of the Caribbean. They had different facades of various places in countries that have actually hosted CARFESTA before, as well as Antigua and Barbuda, that's going to be hosting the next CARFESTA in 2021. There were things happening all across Trinidad and Tobago, especially in Tobago, which had its own festival. And there were things also happening in the south of Trinidad, in San Fernando. And so we're now going to give you a recap of all of what we were able to cover here in Trinidad and Tobago.
CARFESTA 14.
The Caribbean Festival of Arts, CARFESTA 14, starts here at the Queen's Park Savannah, where over 1,000 revelers from more than 20 countries will parade through the streets of Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago.
So we are coming here with a force, yeah. Blessings we are reaping, we coursing on full. Oh, we rise and boast. Yeah, we give thanks that we need it the most. We have to give thanks that we
This is the Caribbean, the home of Carnival and the home of CARFESTA. You can feel the vibes, you can feel the energy in the street. Now I'll hand you back over to Jacine.
Thanks, Shaquille. Based on your account, the parade gave a wonderful display of camaraderie, fun, and excitement that can only be found at CARFESTA. The opening ceremony was, of course, no different. In fact, patrons were treated to a spectacular display of elaborate performances, paying homage to the culture and customs of CARICOM member states and associate members. The official aspect of the evening's proceedings included remarks from the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Minister of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, the Honorable Nyan Gadsby Dolly, and CARICOM Secretary General Ambassador Erwin LaRocque.
Gathering at the Santa Rosa Park on the 17th of August were members of the indigenous community from Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, among others, including Trinidad and Tobago Dr. the Honorable Nyan Gadsby Dolly and Guyana Dr. the Honorable Minister of Social Cohesion, Culture, Youth and Sport, George Norton, whereby the chief of the Santa Rosa First Peoples Community and Trinidad and Tobago demonstrated a spiritual smoke ritual in honor of the ancestors, showcasing their rich culture.
Through the medium of the fire and the sacred herb, the sacred incense of the forest, we send our prayer to you because you dwell in the highest heaven and you have placed us upon the lowest earth. And from the lowest earth to the highest heaven. What we did was a small version of a smoke ritual, a smoke ceremony. And this is one of the ways in which our indigenous peoples pray. They had many different ways. Some of them prayed by the river, some underneath the tree, some through the medium of the fire. And because the indigenous peoples are nature worshippers, they choose those elements of nature through which they send our prayers.
It is a pleasure to be here at Rima once again to celebrate in the spirit of our Kaya Festa with the First Peoples, our indigenous peoples, and it makes it doubly special when we have persons from the region joining us in this celebration. It makes it so impactful. And so I want to congratulate our own First Peoples for keeping this alive.
This is the Carry Festa stage, where we focus on the performances that were taken to the stage at Carry Festa 14. Let's check out one of the pieces that received a standing ovation. We are at the Queen's Hall for an event dubbed Rhythms of the Caribbean. So come on, let's go inside and see if we can feel the rhythm.
Festa 14.
You become familiar with those types of hands. Hands with long, slender fingers acting on behalf of unfulfilled dreams. You come to understand that disrespect is a one-way street traveled only by women. She should have been familiar, but she didn't read between the lines of his love letters, didn't hear the licks in his raging drum solo.
So this is Zara Gordon, who performed one of the spoken word pieces tonight. Zara, thank you so much for interviewing with me. Tell me, what was your inspiration for this piece? Licks Like Rain, it was called?
Yes, the piece was called Licks Like Rain, and it was inspired by the story of the women in my family and in my community in Trinidad and Tobago, and also in the Caribbean diaspora. So I put together different aspects of their lives and details and some of the pain that they've had to experience being women within a society, and use that to write the piece. It actually comes from a longer series called Rainy Season, where I really focus on a lot of family history and speak about it from a female perspective.
Let's head to the Grand Market stage for country night performances from day 4 of the festival. The stage so far at CariFesta 14 has brought so many different energies and genres.
CariFesta 14.
The Queen's Park Savannah was filled with patrons coming from far and wide to see megastars Machel Montano from Trinidad and Tobago and Shaggy from Jamaica, and they did not disappoint.
Just like a silk, soft and cuddly me up like a quilt. I'm a lyrical lover, not take my pen up with my sexual physique. You know me well, oh me, oh my, well, can't you tell? I'm just like a turtle crawling out of my shell. Now you captivate my body, put me under a spell. With your couscous perfume, I love the sweet smell. You're the only young girl who can ring my bell. Trinidad, throw your hands in the air. Bombastic, fantastic.
There was also a performance from the world-renowned Zouk band Kassav, as well as Barbados superstar Alison Hines, along with a range of other soca artists such as Blacks, Voice, Nyla Blackman, Calypso Rose, Ricardo Drew from Antigua and Barbuda, reigning Trini Soca Monarch winners Neval Chaitlal and Nishard M, and a Soca Monarch veteran Ricky Jai.
Carry Festa 14. Red, black and white. Hey, energy in with mine. Oh yeah, it's a coming together. Cultures all over the Caribbean. Hey, let's come together. Carry Festa. Let's come together.
So we are at the Grand Market. It's dubbed the Streets of the Caribbean, and I have with me Shaquille Williams. Shaquille is a guest presenter for us for our coverage of CariFesta 14. He's from the Ikemba group that focuses heavily on reparations for the Caribbean community, and it has been a nice collaborative effort for us to bring you the happenings here at CariFesta 14. Now here at the Grand Market, it's being called the Streets of the Caribbean, and they have facades of various member states that have hosted CariFesta, so like Guyana and Barbados, etc. Barbados was actually the host last year, and next year the host is going to be Antigua and Barbuda. So come on, let's go inside to the inside of the Grand Market where you can see some of what is on show and what the vendors have to offer, the food and the fun.
I want to experience the Caribbean.
Absolutely.
CariFesta 14, Trinidad and Tobago.
We're here in the auditorium of the Southern Academy for the Performing Arts, where over the past few days, small business owners living in South Trinidad would have had the opportunity to showcase their locally made products. We're going to take you through so you also can see what they have done.
Grateful to CariFesta for this opportunity to showcase, especially in Sapa, being a South girl. You know, we get to rep South Trinidad. I'm happy that they thought to have a local venue for the event.
I am honored to be here to be showcasing my products, which is natural skincare products. I make sugar scrubs, body butters, foot soaps, a number of things that's very nourishing and healthy.
So far, we have had a resounding attendance in terms of the shows. The craft market is huge for us here in San Fernando, and the artists who are here for the displays is enjoying some visibility for their craft.
Don't feed them and talk bad about them. Them does molest them now, yo. Like, can't on your rooftop. Make them pass it tonight, late in the night. Make them run around your house where you got visitors till eventually. Them does break the net. Oh my God, please.
Don't like to me, no.
I did.
I said, God, don't like to me, no.
I like you. Good.
Is I give you everything you got? Is I make you right? Hey, is I make you right?
Yes.
Hey. Useless hands attached to a useless man who should be placed on an island buried alive with only his head above the sun until he disintegrates from creation or rot till the end of time, you useless frame with a useless mind, pig in the mud behavior, you useless swine. Use your hands to hit a woman, that's an unforgivable crime. CariFesta 14.
With creativity and youth electricity, we are going to continue here at the Envision Youth Village. We're going to take you to an interview with Miss Elizabeth Montano, who has created a kiddie safe space for young children to come and do reading, featuring the book Boy Boy and the Musical Drums, which was written by her son, Marshall Montano.
When CariFesta came up,
I thought it was a good idea to relaunch the book and also to do this activity. And I discussed it with Marshall and he was all for it, so here it is. Plus we also decided that after this we are going to go into the schools. The story, it might be a children's book, but it is a story that could relate to any age, any size, any look, because we have been having families.
The factory provided electricity, so everyone depended on it. But it was destroying Honifer Land's beauty. Its chimneys coughed plumes of colored fumes into the air, and slippery sludge spewed into the streets. People, both rich and poor, spilled out of their homes to follow Boy Boy. A few people even wore their costumes. Someone lifted Boy Boy and his drum into the air and began a rousing chant.
A new instrument from the master, bing bong, musical bing bong, have them winding down bing bong, magical bing bong, all the girls are jumping, bumpy dum, all day long. Back home in the community, he found a band man they call Bootsy, who taught him to play and make magic. Curry Festa 14. Hey, red, black and white.
I think that we all can agree that this edition of the festival has added another meaningful chapter to our CariFesta history and raised the bar in terms of the technical and marketing standards in the delivery of the festival. On behalf of the Secretary General and the entire Caribbean community, I extend our deepest appreciation and thanks to Dr. the Honorable Nian Gadsby Dolly, the host country management committee, the CariFesta 14 Secretariat, and all the supporting committees. Every edition of this festival brings new experiences and challenges, but also opportunities to learn and improve the festival. For all the efforts you have made and your tremendous success, we thank you most sincerely. We also thank the people of Trinidad and Tobago for their warm and generous hospitality that made our stay such a pleasant and memorable one. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Trinidad and Tobago, congratulations. You have done it again. We will leave with wonderful memories of CariFesta 14 in Trinidad and Tobago. We have enjoyed your excellent showcases, your creative spirit and positive vibrations, which have made this festival another exciting experience and a platform for regional integration.
As the curtains are now drawing on this epic festival, I must convey my unfathomable gratitude to the host country management committee and the hard-working CariFesta Secretariat for bringing this vision of CariFesta 14 to life. Long live Caribbean culture.
In homage to those gone before us, raise your voices high, sing of your Caribbean pride, sing it loud and strong, feel our hearts beat as one, celebrating song as we rise to heights where we
CariFesta, CariFesta 14. Are you ready for it? Oh, it's CariFesta. CariFesta is the stage. The arts and culture is delight, shining
ever so bright. So much talent in one place. Trinidad and Tobago is the home for heretics to grow. Share the love of the arts and invest in the culture. We will connect in unity. This is Carrie Festa 2019.
Thanks guys for watching our recap of CARIFESTA 14. We hope you enjoyed the coverage that we brought to you of the event wherever you are located in the world. And before we close out, I just wanted to say a special thank you to members of the Ikemba Reparations Youth Movement from Guyana who assisted us with our productions. I had guest presenter Shaquille Williams. There was Mr. Kibwe Copeland who also assisted with the production and is actually the president of the Ikemba Youth Movement. And then there was Mr. Sule Collymore and of course Mr. Rashley Fraser who did some of the filming and editing of our videos. Once again, thank you so much and back over to you now, Michelle.
For more details of these and other stories, visit the CARICOM Secretariat news site today.caricom.org or the CARICOM website at caricom.org. Like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you next time.
The Caribbean is a rich biodiversity hotspot. It has over 11,000 plant species, and about 72 of these are found only in this region. This richness also extends to the Caribbean people. Their traditional knowledge of the region's varied natural resources has integrated nature into the economic and health sectors worldwide. It has also drawn many to research and use the region's biodiversity for medicinal, cosmetic, and pharmaceutical purposes. For example, the glaucoma medication Canosol is made from cannabis. However, Caribbean islands have fallen prey to biopiracy, where a country's resources are accessed and developed commercially, but the country gets little or no benefit from it. As the world benefits from the Caribbean's biodiversity, countries need to be compensated for their commercial use. Lawmakers need to ensure that their countries are legally prepared to give access to and benefits from commercial use of genetic resources. To ensure prior informed consent and mutually agreed terms of access established by the Nagoya Protocol, the Global Environment Facility, GEF, United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, and the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN, are jointly providing support to countries at different levels in order to advance towards functional access and benefit sharing. Under the Nagoya Protocol, countries from which natural resources are obtained for commercial developments are entitled to compensation. It also ensures indigenous knowledge from groups such as the Maroons, Rastafarians, and Amerindians can be credited and compensated if their traditional knowledge has been used for commercial purposes. Caribbean islands are putting the Nagoya Protocol in their legislative framework to safeguard their country's biodiversity and traditional knowledge. Let us all work together to protect our resources, do valuable research, and reap the benefits of sustainable bioprospecting in the region.
It's season 12, and Wealth Magazine Business Access is here to keep you business savvy. With an impressive mix of some of Jamaica's most inspiring business moguls, we continue to keep Jamaica informed, empowered, and ready to dominate. Tune in Sundays at 5 p.m. only on BATV.
You're watching
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access TV.
Serious about business.
Business Access TV.
Business Access TV.
Business Access.
Business Access TV.
Serious.
Serious.
Serious about business.
Business Access TV welcomes you to the 2019 Sterling Asset Management Investor Briefing being held under the theme, Is Export-Led Growth Right for Jamaica? Hi, I'm Elon Parkinson. Let's stay for the highlights.
Before we get into some hard-hitting questions, I'd like to give each person on the panel just 2 minutes, a strict 2 minutes, to tell us their outlook on what's going on. Our theme this evening is the role of monetary policy in driving export-driven growth. We'll get into that a bit more in more detail later, but right now I wanted to give each gentleman a chance to give us their outlook on the economy, what's been going on, and a chance to air some of what they think is most important.
Bank of Jamaica is focused now on building the wherewithal, the infrastructure, the methodologies of entrenching low, stable, and predictable inflation. That has been a missing factor for much of our history. And over the last 10 years, with a series of reforms, we've worked to get to where we are now, where inflation is fairly predictable, the external accounts are sustainable, the fiscal accounts are in great shape, the debt is falling. What we need now is the infrastructure that can entrench low and stable inflation as a long-term expectation. And that's critical to our growth prospects. It's critical to how investors behave, if they can predict the future with some certainty. It's critical to the exchange rate behavior. It's critical to maintaining a competitive exchange rate, which is a critical factor in export-led growth.
I mean, what I would say is at this particular juncture, there is a lot of discussion about Jamaica exiting from IMF financial support. Maybe I could take the 2.5 minutes to say what does that mean for us or for the Jamaican people. For us, it means that the financial leg of our operation in Jamaica ends, but that's only one of the functions that the IMF performs as an institution. So we do lend to countries, that's one. But the two other legs will remain, because what we also do is that we do coach countries how to run policies, how to reform the tax administration, a wide range of issues. So we think of ourselves as coach. We also think of us, we are very ambitious, so we also think of ourselves as doctor. So we visit our 189 member countries to do what we call health check, even if there is no program, even if we don't have a lending agreement with those countries, we do visit them annually to perform health check and offer our advice on policies. And you will be surprised to learn that the latest data show that in 2018, lending was only 14%, 1/4 of IMF resources. The other 86% went to coaching countries and to doing the health check of those countries. So after the IMF program finished and towards the end of this year, the partnership between Jamaica and the IMF will remain. And as a matter of fact, the IMF office will remain open. So all the pillars that will help Jamaica entrench the hard-won gain over the past 6 years are being put in place. You can think about the Fiscal Council that Minister Clark has been pushing for, and there is a lot of work going into that to make sure that there is a watchdog that will ensure that whichever administration comes to power, there are binding fiscal targets that would guide the conduct of fiscal policy. There is a bill in the parliament currently on ensuring that the central bank is independent enough to conduct monetary policy freely. And there are, all kinds of reforms precisely to make sure that the pillars, the foundations are there for Jamaica to sustain the reform momentum that we've seen over the past few years.
Well, that's good to know that the IMF will continue its presence. And of course, we really value, I know the local analyst community really values the data that both the BOJ and the IMF do a great, great job of putting out. We base a lot of our research on that. So we'd like to express our gratitude. And Charles, can we move to you?
Right. Well, I think that the real challenge remaining for us is to transform the output of our economy and the rate of growth. I think John certainly made the point that we've made progress on the fiscal and monetary side, or at least some aspects of that, very important aspects. But I sort of think of it a bit like riding a bicycle. If you are moving very slowly, it's difficult to keep your balance. And really what we want is that we want to maintain the hard-won gains of the last few years. And I think that having a faster rate of growth will certainly help in that respect. And so this is really why I think the whole issue of the export-led growth model is certainly worthy of some discussion.
I would throw to Dr. Lonkengwano, who has had some experience in other countries, and you referenced, Charles, an export-led growth model. Can you maybe tell us, Dr. Lonkengwano, is this model appropriate for Jamaica? And if so, what are maybe 2 prerequisites that you think would, and I'm sure there are many things that need to be in place, but if you would identify the 2 most impactful ones, what would you say they are?
Yeah, I think I will draw on a story to relate to that question. The Jamaican Manufacturer and Exporter Association, from time to time, they do this tour. So they visit one firm to look at their processes. It's a tour that I like to join because you have hands-on experience of what the firm goes through on a day-to-day basis. And during one of those tours 2 years ago, I won't name the firm, but it's a firm that is in business of spice, making spice, exporting to the US. So on the side, I asked the CFO, what is your most binding constraint? Is it the demand, that you don't have enough demand for your product? Or is it more supply in terms of running your operations? The answer was so striking. He said, no, the demand is there. The US market, I can barely scratch the surface. So the demand is not an issue because I'm looking outward. So I'm not looking I'm not looking at the 2.8 million people in Jamaica. I have a larger market, and the demand is there. So I don't face any constraint on that side. I asked, okay, why don't you expand if the demand is there? And he said, interest rates are very high. But that was 2 years ago. I need to go and talk to him again.
Another talk.
To figure out, because BOJ has been busy cutting interest rates.
Yeah.
And just to find out what is the state of affairs now, but the sense is that access to finance was a big issue then, and I understand it's still an issue because of the, part of it is the business model of financial institutions which were understandably used to running on government papers because government debt was very high. But now that the government is paying down the debt, banks are flush with cash, and the question is, how do you unleash that to finance private sector activity? So that's one constraint, I would say, access to finance to allow firms to expand beyond Jamaican borders. Because as a firm, given also the digital revolution, your market is not confined to Jamaica. So that's one. The second thing I asked him, I kind of pushed him, what else? So he said, US consumer, he said, I'm using the word that he's used, allergic to price increase. He said, basically, my price is, I can't dream of any price increase in the US market, which you will understand, right? Because inflation there is 1-2%. So there is no scope to increase your price. And what he told me was that the only margin that he has in terms of managing its cost increase and so on is the exchange rate. Because he get the same price in US. So for him to meet its costs, increased costs locally, which by the way includes security costs to fight crime, right? You need a lot of security officers. It's only if the exchange rate depreciates. Because when the exchange rate depreciates for him, bringing back those US dollar from his sales means dollar of Jamaican dollar that he can then pay people, pay the security stuff, and so on. So exchange rate, I don't want to say exchange rate policy because there is no really such thing as exchange rate policy, but your monetary policy framework is part of the equation. And as Sir John just mentioned, the bank is very busy trying to entrench a low, stable, and predictable environment. So I believe, inflation targeting is certainly the monetary policy framework that would kind of foster this type of export-led growth. So those are maybe two critical pillars: access to finance in terms of allowing those small businesses to innovate and reach wider market because they need to scale up. And then, the whole notion of monetary policy framework, having a framework that preserves what economists call price competitiveness, because you have to be competitive at all times. If your local costs are high, you need your exchange rate to shelter you against that so you can remain competitive on external market, because that's how people choose where to buy from. They choose based on the cost.
Career Moves has always explored interesting careers, highlighting all you may not have known about them. This season is no different.
Coming back to Jamaica, everyone's like, Fizzy what? Fizzy who?
When you find a bright boy or girl in the class and people say, what are you going to be? The parents will say, you have to go be a doctor, you have to go be a lawyer. Nobody says you have to go be a politician.
Let me see your hands.
Tune in Tuesdays at 8 p.m. on Business Access TV.
Sundays at 4:30 p.m. It's all about Home Sweet Home. Get your half-hour dose of the business of real estate, from laws and concepts to reality, building, buying, or renting. Or what about trends in decor or renovations? Home Sweet Home will keep you up to date.
Your business matters. Business Access TV offers you the most innovative and effective advertising solution for your business, specializing in B2B sales, cost-effective solutions, the customers you want, the repetition you need. No matter the size and nature of your company, your business matters. Call us at 876-618-2870 or email us at sales@batvja.com. Business Access TV, serious about business.
Deputy Governor Robinson, I of course had an icebreaker, easier question for you at first, but after Dr. Lankengwana's point, I must ask you a few things. One is, are you happy with the rate of growth of credit to the private sector based on what you have been seeing? And I know that the central bank's remit has nothing to do with the actual systems through which the money gets lent, but do you think banks are doing enough?
Well, one of the effects that we expect from our cumulative relaxation of policy is an acceleration in the rate of growth of credit, not distinguishing at the origin between personal and business. But we believe that if banks expand credit broadly, then that is a mechanism through which domestic demand can pick up and growth can occur. We understand, we have seen a pickup in growth in credit over the past 2 years. We're running now at about 15% year over year, which is much faster than we have been accustomed to.
That's good to know.
We think there is scope for even faster expansion. Banks are liquid, there is demand, there is a shortage of other assets, and the return on very safe assets is very low. So there's a great incentive for banks to find good credits and to expand their book. We're not reckless about expansion at all costs. There is yet another side to this, which is about bubbles, about credit risks, about the search for yields which go beyond due care. And we cannot afford a repeat of some of the issues that we faced in the past. So while we are promulgating a very accommodative monetary policy, we are mindful of the need to maintain credit quality and the need for a lot of that credit, where possible, to go towards business expansion. We don't direct credit. So who the banks choose to lend to depends on their assessment of projects, depends on growth sectors, prospects, and so on. But if there's a generalized response to very low, relatively low interest rates and an outlook for an accommodative monetary policy, this is one of the foundations on which we can spur faster domestic demand and growth. I just want to touch back on one of the points Constance made about the exchange rate. We've spent a lot of time correcting an overvalued exchange rate. Over the past 6 years or so, we have experienced a real depreciation of about 1.8% a year.
Wow.
Which has helped to correct a long period of overvaluation, which was measured at about the time the program started. This right sizing, right valuation of the real exchange rate is one of the foundations on which an export sector can grow. An overvalued exchange rate favors imports and acts as a disincentive for exporters to invest more in expanding their business. The person who is relying on the exchange rate to recover costs that he experiences locally, who then finds that there is a tendency towards overvaluation, cannot recover those costs that, as Dr. Longking says, is needed if you can't adjust your prices abroad. So a fairly valued exchange rate built on a flexible exchange rate system is one of the key pillars for favoring an export-led growth policy.
100%. I'm very glad you touched on that, Deputy Governor Robinson, and I'll give Charles an opportunity to, I know he has strong views on this, and there are also countries all over the world, to your point, that have employed similar strategies. Charles, I don't know if you want to touch on a few case studies.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could mention, several, beginning with, of course, Japan and Germany in the 60s, Singapore, South Korea in the 70s, China since then. But one of the things that I wanted to throw out to both Constance and John is that, that whole notion of the inflation differential, because it really is what how the markets ultimately adjust. And Constance's point about exporters being price takers, it really means that the extent to which our inflation rate is higher than that of our major trading partners like the US and so on, then you almost have to automatically expect that level of adjustment in the exchange rate on an annual basis, on average. I don't know how we condition the country to accept that, but and of course, the other thing that we have to accept is that markets very often overshoot. You know, if the inflation differential is 3%, it doesn't mean that there's going to be exactly a 3% adjustment. It may be 5, it may be 4, it may be 6, it may be 2. But, you know, there has to be that adjustment in order to maintain the competitiveness. And I think the other thing we have to accept is that it's better for the rate to be a little undervalued, because that provides an extra incentive rather than overvalued and provide a disincentive and a penalty for exporters.
All of what you're saying, all three of you, seems to be very sound economic logic. But for some reason, the broad society has not generally, and of course, as reflected in the media, generally is not accepting of these principles. Are Jamaicans too obsessed with the exchange rate? Are we looking at the wrong metrics? And why? Why would that be the case? And
yeah, so maybe let me start where Charles left. The whole notion of inflation differential, that if you're running inflation higher than your trade partners, in order to maintain your competitiveness, your exchange rate will have to close the gap so that you can be, you don't come across as too costly. Right? So when you start from that point, it's very clear that eventually, so there are two components. There is a medium, what we call medium to long term, not day-to-day movement. So there are, so over the medium term, like on average per year, your depreciation will be the inflation differential. Let's take a very simple example. The Fed target 2% inflation, and the Bank of Jamaica target 5%. So if they all meet their target, the exchange rate will have to depreciate by 3% to close that gap. And that's over the medium term, not every day. Because what happens on a daily basis is that one day, you'll have a lot of people wanting US dollar for some reason, just timing of their imports, because they need the US to import, and less people supplying, because there are maybe few tourists came that day or whatever. So at each point in time, you wouldn't expect that to hold. You wouldn't expect that inflation differential to be a daily thing, because even inflation numbers are released once a year, once a month. So, and those markets, in economics, there are always transitions where things overshoot, undershoot, but then eventually there is auto-correction. That's just how the mechanics works, right? So on a daily basis, if there are more people wanting the US dollar than people supplying the US dollar, the price of the US dollar will go up. It's a commodity like any other commodity. And if there are fewer people wanting the US dollar and more people supplying, well, the price of the US dollar will go down, which is an exchange rate appreciation. So you wouldn't expect on a day-to-day basis that the exchange rate will move with inflation differential. But eventually, market forces will take you to that level that is compatible with the inflation differential. And the Bank of Jamaica has been very busy making sure that the day-to-day movements are not subject to distortions. So it should be market-based in terms of making sure that market participants have the information flow. The market is very transparent. And I'm sure Surgeon will speak about the BFIXIT, the mechanism that they put in place to make sure that the market function well. Because what you want on the market, any market, is that demand and supply meet. And you don't stand in the middle of the demand and supply. And eventually, the correction will take place, and you will expect the exchange rate to move with the inflation differential.
thank you. And Governor Robinson?
Well, two things I would emphasize, as Constant just did, the importance of low inflation. We're building a whole infrastructure to entrench that, from the legislative changes through to our now world-famous communication efforts,
Yes.
our training, our modeling, our whole organizational structure is being modified to take us to full-fledged inflation targeting as an operating framework. What we want to assure Jamaicans is that we have the organizational ability to reliably deliver on our mandate. So we're being given a core mandate, deliver inflation according to the target that is set for you. Communicate what you see ahead. You will be free to adjust policy to meet that goal. But over time, we want everybody to hold you accountable for that outcome. And once that track record is established, then people will adjust their expectations accordingly. We will have entrenched, low, stable, and predictable inflation, which is the one part of the equation which was being discussed, the inflation differential and expectations. Flexibility can be uncomfortable at times. If the rate doesn't move at all, then consumers feel happiest. They do. I mean, if you ask anybody who has to import a lot, what worries you the most? And it's usually the fact that the exchange rate may move against me by the time I have to pay for the goods that I have imported. Having an environment where these changes become more flexible, more predictable, more firmly based on the policy intentions of the authorities, I think people will adopt and adapt their behavior accordingly. There will be no certainty on a given day what the exchange rate will be. But if inflation is managed reliably and predictably at a low level, then we can, over time, expect no more than a certain rate of adjustment, and we can build products that can hedge against those expectations. So building an environment of stable domestic prices, building a system of exchange of foreign currency that is transparent, that is market-based, and which increasingly will become more accessible by end users. And I'll talk a little bit later about the trading platform that we're putting in place. But these foundations, monetary stability and exchange rate flexibility, will lead to a maintenance of competitiveness, which then leads to a more promising environment for export growth and growth.
The Good Life, your trusted source for useful health and wellness information, lifestyle tips for the mind, body, and soul. Tune in Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. on Business Access TV. Your business matters. Business Access TV offers you the most innovative and effective advertising solution for your business, specializing in B2B sales, cost-effective solutions, the customers you want, the repetition you need. No matter the size and nature of your company, your business matters. Call us at 876-618-2870 or email us at sales@batvja.com. Business Access TV, serious about business.
As a teacher for over 8 years, we need to realize that the children are our future. We need to love them, appreciate, and respect our children. No more violence against children. No more!
Cameo brings the creative industries to life, delighting creatives in different fields each week. Art.
My life surrounds art. I breathe, I eat art.
Fashion. Food.
Without a customer, we're nothing but four walls.
Music. Film. Cameo, only on Business Access TV.
in their recent Article 4 IMF report, they suggested that, maybe suggested is a strong word, but they outlined that, persistent unscheduled interventions in the FX market could have unintended consequences, so to speak. And my question to you is, does the Bank of Jamaica intend to continue to use the flash sale mechanism in the future, or will we be, as we get better at predicting the demand and supply, will BFIXit be used more regularly?
Well, BFIXit is a kind of halfway house. It's a step towards an eventual system of fairly free trading among dealers with end users on an electronic platform.
Okay.
What we've tried to introduce in this midway stage is to accustom dealers to help discover what the prices are in the market through competitive bidding for amounts that we sell during periods of shortages. We have had instances or episodes where we've been buying, but that has, those left a sour aftertaste in the minds of market players because they thought we were buying at too high a rate. But BFIXit was meant to give notice and to sell into the market based on information supplied by dealers. So if they say at the end of June we see 20 million globally, then we will give notice that we will sell all or some of that into the market around that time. And that gave the assurance that dealers could fill orders from positions, knowing that additional liquidity will come to the market then. It has led to an expectation of smoothing, which I think is not the intention of our liquidity injections. The market has matured some more, and it will mature further as we move to more electronic trading. Currently, the market is testing a platform produced by Bloomberg, which allows them to view quotes among themselves, not to consummate trades online, but enough discovery among the players so that any dealer, yourself, can look online and see what every other dealer is selling and what amounts. We hope by the first quarter of next year to introduce our own platform, custom built for Jamaica, where players, dealers, can look at quotes, strike deals, and settle seamlessly through the BOJ accounts. So BFIXit was just a kind of halfway house. And we do subscribe to the recommendation that we not intervene too frequently or too heavily unless it's really disorderly. We have enough reserves, so we're not buying aggressively, and we're not seeking to support a particular exchange rate. So we intervene during periods of disorder, and those have become fewer.
Right.
There's more tolerance for flexibility. So there's less of a panic now when the rate moves by, 10, 20 cents, $1. That never used to be the case. So there's growing tolerance for flexibility. There is growing dependence on price discovery across the market. And soon there will be more seamless trading in a more modern environment.
The Bank of Jamaica governor, who has so far conducted the arrangements made by the IMF, as it were, how long is it the program will exist? And if so, why is it that the Bank of Jamaica is not encouraged to continue to finalize that project? That's a question to you and the IMF.
Can I clarify, seek some clarification?
Yes?
You're saying that...
It's not political.
I would have spotted it. No, but you seem to be unclear whether the program of reforms will continue after the IMF exits its financial relationship.
I'm not saying that. I'm just asking whether you have a program, a period for that program. Things have worked so well that the IMF, in fact, has said, congratulate the Bank of Jamaica for supporting the program. I'm asking what period, what is left of the program, and why wouldn't it be that the IMF would encourage the Bank of Jamaica governor to continue for that period to ensure that all that were planned have been effected?
Well,
the question.
The program that we're under, the precautionary standby arrangement, is virtually over.
Oh, it is?
Yes. There were no drawings under this program. The commitments were precautionary. If there had been a problem, a shock, we would have been eligible to draw down funds which IMF pre-committed. That wasn't necessary. We continued a program of reforms, and the performance under this last 2-3 years has been exemplary. We are institutionalizing those reforms on the fiscal side, on the monetary side, on the structural transformations, so that whether or not there is a financial backstop available on demand, we would have put in place sufficient procedures, institutional arrangements to continue these reforms into the future. So I don't think you're referring particularly to any one person as necessary.
No, there can be one person.
Right.
But there's a head.
But there is a set of arrangements which are sustainable. And I think this transition is just an example of how well things can work without external support.
So maybe very quickly, 2 quick points on that. Number one, I like it to be called what it is. It's the Government of Jamaica's Economic Reform Program. It's not an IMF program. We're just tagging along. These are sacrifices of the Jamaican people. This success is for the Jamaican, it has been on the back of hard sacrifice by the Jamaican people. So the credit goes to the Jamaicans. So the Jamaicans. It's not an IMF program, it's an IMF-supported program. And this is one of the reasons why the program has been so successful, because the program has been owned by the Jamaican successive administration. It has been owned by the Jamaican people. That's one. Number two, we like to think about these reforms as institutions driving them, not individuals. I mean, individuals are part of the institutions, but you don't want a system, you want a system where there is continuity. And one of the other reasons why the reform program has been so successful in Jamaica, and we haven't seen it in many places around the world, is that you had a change in administration, and the reform program, the broad parameter of the reform program remain unchanged. So there is the so-called policy continuity, which is so critical for investors, because one of the key elements that investors will be looking at is policy certainty, how much you can project yourself 5, 10 years down the road. It's not when you're investing today, it's not a 1 year, 2 year return you're looking at. You're looking at medium to long term. So we believe this is, the institutional platform is there to support any kinds of transition.
Your business matters. Business Access TV offers you the most innovative and effective advertising solution for your business, specializing in B2B sales, cost-effective solutions, the customers you want, the repetition you need. No matter the size and nature of your company, your business matters. Call us at 876-618-2870 or email us at sales@batvja.com. Business Access TV, serious about business.
The Good Life, your trusted source for useful health and wellness information, lifestyle tips for the mind, body, and soul. Tune in Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. on Business Access TV.
Has always explored interesting careers, highlighting all you may not have known about them. This season is no different.
Coming back to Jamaica, everyone's like, Fizzy what? Fizzy who?
When you find a bright boy or girl in the class and they say, what are you going to be? The parents will say, you have to go be a doctor, you have to go be a lawyer. Nobody says you have to go be a politician.
Let me see your hands.
Tune in Tuesdays at 8 p.m. on Business Access TV.
We've heard so much from the Sterling Asset Management Investor Briefing, certainly the perspectives of the IMF Chief Representative, along with Charles Ross and the BOJ Governor. Charles joins us now to go into a little bit more into something that you said earlier about us having the real challenge of transforming output, which is, of course, a key part of creating faster economic growth. How close are we to getting that right?
Well, Elon, that is absolutely the multi-million-dollar question. And the reason that we had this theme this evening was really to explore that. Because at the end of the day, economic growth is what's going to lift our standard of living, is what's going to make everybody better off, is what's going to provide the resources for vital social services, infrastructure, etc. And unfortunately, we've made great progress in bringing down our debt and improving the fiscal balance, bringing down inflation, but we haven't been able to significantly increase economic growth. And so that really was the central theme of this evening's discussion.
So, for our viewers watching right now and saying, look, I want to get into exports, because that was essentially the theme of this evening's presentation. Where are the green shoots? Where are the opportunities? Point us.
Well, that's again another multi-million-dollar question. But as John Robinson mentioned, there has been a bit of a real adjustment in the exchange rate over the last few years, and that has provided some incentive for export-led investment. And we are seeing manufacturers in the food processing, agri-processing, agriculture, in that area, we are seeing some interest and some increases in export activity. However, as one of the people who asked questions in the Q&A pointed out, the volatility in the exchange rate, the movements up and down, which has recently become a feature of the foreign exchange market, that poses certain challenges for the exporters, because the 7% movement means the difference between profit and loss. So there's still issues, but I think that with the right signals from macroeconomic policy, the right sort of pricing, if you like, of the exchange rate, that will provide a significant boost to export activity.
Where this problem obtains in other parts of the world, has there been any kind of sector-led intervention to assist exporters? I'm talking now about finance houses like yourself coming up with products that could hopefully hedge against that eventuality for exporters.
Well, I tell you, one of the challenges with hedging is that you need to have the unimpeded, if you like, impact of market forces. And one of the challenges that we have is that we still have interventions by the central bank. So that really it's going to be very difficult to develop the sort of hedging mechanisms when you have periodic interventions by the central bank which have a major impact on movements in the exchange rate. And so you're not able to use the mathematical models which are inherent in these hedging instruments because you're not really having the full impact of market forces. And you do have these periodic interventions which almost present discontinuities in the data and the data sets. And that therefore makes it very difficult to price the hedging instruments that you'd find in developed markets or markets where there is less intervention and a more free interplay of market forces. So that's one of the challenges that we have. Really, we need to develop more of a pure market in terms of the foreign exchange market so that institutions can develop these hedging mechanisms, I guess, without taking undue risk.
Much of what you heard earlier when it comes on to the discourse at the 2019 Sterling Asset Management Investor Briefing focused on the Bank of Jamaica's role in inflation targeting and how it has been managing the issue of the interest rates as well as the foreign exchange rate, primarily the Jamaican dollar versus the US dollar. I have with me the Senior Deputy Governor of the Bank of Jamaica, John Robinson. And you acquitted of yourself very well there earlier when the volley of questions came to you about the BOJ's policy. The BOJ's policy, though, is one that you have advertised, is one that you have tried to socialize the Jamaican public and indeed the world. It was picked up by an overseas network as to your marketing campaign around what I like to describe as monetary knowledge. How has the campaign been going and what's the reaction been like?
Well, it has been phenomenal. The coverage we have got, I've never seen any central bank get that kind of coverage on advertising their mandates. What we've set out to do is to make Jamaica, firstly Jamaica, aware of what our mandate is. What do we care about? What do we want to do for them? And we want them to know about inflation. We want them to know that we are focused on keeping inflation low and stable, and that we are organizing ourselves to maintain that for a long time to come. A lot of people, even the word inflation may be new to them. So it has been a big campaign to teach people what inflation is, why they should care about it, how we go about controlling it, and what it will do for their way of life. We've used music, and that has taken off. We've used drama. We've done seminars. We're doing every possible outlet to get the message across. Soon you'll see billboards. You'll see video. You'll see more. But we want everybody to be aware of what BOJ does, what it cares about, and what it means for them.
And as people become aware of that, what's the call to action then? They now know. What do they do as a result of having that knowledge?
Once they understand that inflation, their experience with prices going forward is something they can predict, then it leads into how they negotiate wages, what they think of as being a good price for a future product. And it allows them to plan their lives a lot better. So it's about predictable prices, and which are low enough not to hurt them in their way of standard of living.
We consider our next guest an honorary Jamaican. He's the IMF's country representative, Dr. Constant Lonken Nguana. Welcome. And I say that to you because you have been all over talking about this economic program that's in tandem with the Jamaican government. And it's a partnership that has clearly worked well. Your short review of where we are, of course, we're in the evening of the agreement, but how has it turned out?
I mean, I'm happy to be associated with such a successful turnaround. I think it's fair to say that the Jamaicans have really turned the economy around, and you can look across the board what macroeconomists tend to look at in terms of indicator of success. Look at macroeconomic stability being entrenched, public debt going from 147% in 2013 to now about 95%. Amazing. And this is without handout from anyone. This is really the Jamaicans taking the decision to put their fiscal house in order. So a lot of policy commitment from successive administration. So policy continuity is something that is highly valued by investors and by consumers. A lot of maturity in the economy. What we would like to see some more, and that's what the government and the people of Jamaica are working on, to get some more growth. But we should not also dismiss the fact that the Jamaican economy has grown for 16 consecutive quarters, which is not something that you've seen a lot in the past. And also over the past quarters, you will have seen grow around 2%, which is almost unprecedented in Jamaica. So, there is a lot of positive, a lot more to do, especially on the growth side. And we're very upbeat about what we see on the ground.
You've just seen some truly thought-provoking insight, analyses, and a commentary from the 2019 Sterling Asset Management Investor Briefing. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Elon Parkinson for Business Access TV, serious about business.
Now presenting the Jamaica Social Investment Fund ICDP Enterprise Development Project. Entrepreneurial Grant Business Pitch.
This project is a $100 million grant that's seeking to target 50 small and micro business enterprises and give them training, capacity development, equipment, permits and license towards the development and the viability of their business. We have made a call for proposal in March of this year for entrepreneurs to submit for the opportunity to receive a grant between $1 and $5 million. We received more than 500 applications, and so we have now shortlisted them to 100. So we've invited that top 100 applicants here today, and they're going to have to pitch their business idea to a panel, and of the 100, 50 will actually transpire and win the opportunity for the grants. One of the primary objectives of what we're doing here is employment. We want the business to be able to sustain not only the principals as the owners, but we also want the business to be able to employ at least 2 people. The next part of it, as we do in all of our projects like this, is it provides a learning instrument of how we can engage small and micro enterprises and take them to the next level.
Why we're doing this rigorous process, because we want to identify the best potential entrepreneurs for this project. And keep in mind that we are speaking about a loan, so we want to ensure that applicants are committed, and that from a sustainability point of view, that upon receiving the support from JSIF, that in 2 or 3 years, the enterprises will still be operational and the broader objective of the project would be achieved. Once we have now equipped them and they should be ready to start the production line going, we'll then have a mentorship component.
It has been a very competitive process. Jamaica is filled with persons with drive and passion. We're expecting that the best will be selected, and then for those who are not successful, we are also hoping to link them to other providers of services, because I'm telling you today, from what I've seen, it is an excellent opportunity. It's worthy of note that many persons coming here today already have some kind of semblance of a business, but they need the additional support to move that business to the other level, as well as some persons that come in with those proposals to start from scratch. On behalf of the JSIF, we want to really thank the DBJ and other partners from UWI who came to be part of the panel, and just to remind you that the JSIF is here and we're investing for community development.
They say it takes a village to raise a child, but the world will one day need the leadership of that child. The time you spend with your child matters. It stimulates their minds and shapes the way they act. Talk with your children. Help them to better understand the world around them and to value what is truly precious. Above all, the most valuable gift you can give them is love. Play, talk, teach, love. Take the time. It makes all the difference. A message from the Parenting Helpline and Ad Council Jamaica.
We are back with another exciting, innovative, and inspiring season.
It takes a lot of stick-to-itiveness, being consistent and persistent in whatever you're doing. That's the bottom line.
Business exists to add value to people's lives. And if we're not doing that, might as well we lock down the store and just call it a day.
It's a season 3 of Creating Wealth, Mondays at 8 p.m. on Business Access TV.
Ready for cable for as little as $100? Ready for no monthly cable bill? Ready for 10 TV channels absolutely free? Then pick up our Ready TV box at authorized stores for $4,500. Hook it up to your TV set, then top it up with Ready Credit for 1, 7, or 30 days. Buy now and get $1,000 free Ready Credit and start watching your favorite shows. Pick it up, hook it up, top it up. Ready TV. Prepaid